There are moments in life when the weight of your struggle feels unbearable. You pray, you labor, and you wait. Yet the heavens seem silent, and doors remain firmly closed. You begin to wonder if God has heard you at all, if perhaps your voice has been lost in the vastness of the universe. But what if the silence you feel is not abandonment, but orchestration? What if behind the scenes, God has already assigned someone in power to open the very door that has been locked in front of you? Every breakthrough in history has required a hand to turn the key, a voice to speak on your behalf, a figure placed in just the right position at just the right time. Think of Joseph in Egypt, sold into slavery, cast into prison, forgotten by those he helped. Yet God had already positioned Pharaoh to one day elevate him. The prison was not the end, it was the preparation. The chains were not punishment, they were the passageway. In the same way, the authority figure who seems unreachable to you today may already be chosen as the vessel for your breakthrough. Consider this. God could part the sea himself, yet he chose Moses. He could have struck down Goliath in an instant, yet he raised David. He could have delivered his message directly to the nations, yet he called prophets, kings, and even rulers to carry his word. This pattern shows us a divine principle. God often uses those in positions of power as instruments to accomplish his will in our lives. You may not know their names yet. You may not have shaken their hands, but your destiny is already linked to theirs, and when the time is right, God will bring them into your path. Think of the authority you fear, the boss who seems distant, the leader who seems unreachable, the system that feels too rigid to bend in your favor. What if those very figures are already bending unseen toward you? What if their hearts are being stirred in the night, their thoughts unsettled until they do the thing God has ordained for you? Scripture reminds us that the king's heart is like a stream in the hand of the Lord, and he directs it wherever he wills. That means no power, no authority, no ruler can stand unmoved by the hand of God when it comes to your purpose. But here is the mystery. While God positions others for your breakthrough, he also positions you. The waiting you endure, the character you build, the humility you learn, all of it is preparation so that when that person in power arrives, you are ready to walk through the door they open. If Joseph had grown bitter in prison, he might have rejected Pharaoh's call. If Esther had been too afraid, she would not have spoken before the king. In the same way, your breakthrough requires you to be faithful in the waiting so that you can be fearless in the moment of calling. Ask yourself, could it be that the delay you feel is not denial, but alignment? Could it be that the very person who will sign the contract, approve the promotion, or grant the opportunity is even now being shaped by God to recognize you when the time comes? If so, then your task is not to strive endlessly in despair, but to remain steadfast, trusting that the hand of heaven is moving on earth through someone with the authority to shift your life. Your breakthrough may not come through the crowd who doubted you, nor through the friends who abandoned you. It may come through someone you never expected, someone in power who holds the key. And when it happens, it will be undeniable that it was not the hand of man, but the hand of God working through man. So lift your eyes, weary heart. The silence is not emptiness, it is orchestration. The waiting is not wasted, it is alignment. And when God's appointed one arrives, your breakthrough will not be delayed a moment longer than heaven has decreed. Every breakthrough in history has required a hand to turn the key, a voice to speak on your behalf, a figure placed in just the right position at just the right time. When you think of breakthrough, you often imagine it as an act of sudden power, a moment when the sky splits open, when miracles descend with fire and thunder. But most often, breakthroughs are quieter. They come through people, through conversations, through hands extended at the very moment you thought no one saw your struggle. And those hands are not random. They are appointed. God assigns someone in power to step into the story of your life and turn what seemed like an endless night into a dawn you could not create for yourself. Look back through the pages of history And you will see this truth written again and again. Joseph's freedom was not unlocked by his own strength. It was by Pharaoh's command. Daniel's deliverance was not secured by his pleading, but by the king who declared him innocent. Esther's people were not saved by their own voice, but by her courage before the throne of power. Again and again, God positions individuals in authority to release what no one else can release, to sign what no one else can sign, to decree what no one else can decree. And often, those individuals are unaware that they are part of something divine. This should change how you see your waiting, because you may believe you are forgotten, that heaven is silent, and that the efforts of your life have been buried. But what if your breakthrough depends not just on your preparation, but on the preparation of another? What if the person who has the key to your next season is not yet ready, and God is shaping them as much as He is shaping you? The delay you call unbearable may actually be alignment in disguise. Consider this. Pharaoh's dreams had to trouble him at night before Joseph was called. Nebuchadnezzar's sleeplessness had to disturb him before Daniel was summoned. Kings and rulers with all their wealth and authority were restless because God needed them in place to recognize His servant. Could it be that the person who holds influence over your destiny is already stirring, restless, unable to move forward until they fulfill their role in your story? You see, power itself is neutral. It can build or it can destroy. But when placed in the hands of someone whom God has chosen for your breakthrough, power becomes a vessel of grace. It becomes the key that turns your prison into a palace, your famine into a feast, your mourning into dancing. And here is the remarkable truth. Even those who may not love God, even those who may not acknowledge Him, can be used as instruments to bring about His purpose in your life. Pharaoh did not worship the God of Joseph, but he elevated Joseph nonetheless. Cyrus, a Persian king, did not serve the God of Israel, but he funded the rebuilding of the temple. Authority is not greater than God. It is shaped and directed by Him. So perhaps you are standing at the edge of despair, believing your breakthrough will never come. But do not underestimate the quiet movements of heaven. Do not despise the silence, for even now God may be placing someone in the corridors of power, whispering into their heart, arranging their steps, so that at the exact time ordained, their authority aligns with your destiny. Consider this. God could part the sea Himself, yet He chose Moses. He could have struck down Goliath in an instant, yet He raised David. He could have delivered His message directly to the nations, yet He called prophets, kings, and even rulers to carry His word. When you reflect on the ways God works, it is tempting to imagine His hand moving without intermediaries, an all-powerful act of sudden deliverance. And yes, God could move in such a way. He could part seas without a staff, silence giants without a sling, and deliver nations without a messenger. But time and again, He chooses to work through people. He chooses to weave His power into human vessels, often flawed, often imperfect, yet positioned at the precise moment where their obedience intersects with His purpose. Why does God work this way? Why does He not simply bypass human agency? Because in His divine wisdom, He has written partnership into the fabric of creation. He calls ordinary men and women into extraordinary moments, making them participants in His story. Moses was hesitant, stammering in speech, but he held the staff that parted waters. David was a shepherd boy, dismissed even by his own family, yet his sling ended a battle no army could win. Esther was an orphan girl, hidden in the king's palace, yet her courage shifted the fate of a nation. This is not coincidence, it is design. God assigns individuals to stand in positions of influence, knowing that when the moment arrives, their action will open a way for someone else's breakthrough. Your life too is part of this design. The one in power who will unlock your door has been written into your story long before you even knew their name. Just as David's sling was prepared before he ever faced Goliath, so too is the authority for your breakthrough already in place before you face your battle. It is humbling to recognize that God often chooses unlikely vessels. He does not always assign the most powerful, the wealthiest, or the most eloquent. Instead, he chooses the one whose role fits his timing. Pharaoh, restless in his palace, became the one to release Joseph. A pagan king became the one to rebuild God's house. Even Pontius Pilate, though acting in weakness, became part of the greatest breakthrough in history, the crucifixion that opened the door of salvation. What this tells us is that God can use anyone, anywhere, at any time to shift the course of your destiny. Think about the authority figures in your own life. Some of them may intimidate you, some may seem indifferent to your plight, some may even oppose you. Yet none of them stand outside the reach of God's hand. He can stir their conscience, shift their perspective, or change their decree in a single moment. The same mouth that once denied you can be the mouth that announces your blessing. The same hand that once withheld can be the hand that releases abundance. So when you pray for breakthrough, do not imagine it coming only through heavenly fire and thunder. Imagine it also through earthly hands, hands appointed, hearts stirred, and voices raised on your behalf. Imagine God weaving together threads of influence, authority, and timing until the tapestry of your destiny is revealed. That is how He works, not in isolation but in partnership, through people He assigns to carry the weight of your breakthrough. Think of the authority you fear, the boss who seems distant, the leader who seems unreachable, the system that feels too rigid to bend in your favor. What if those very figures are already bending unseen toward you? Fear often grips us when we stand before authority. You see the stern face of the employer, the unyielding gait of the institution, the system that has been built to favor others and exclude you. You feel small, powerless, as though your voice cannot rise above the walls that surround those in positions of influence. And yet the very authority you fear may already be turning in your direction. Not because of your persuasion, not because of your strength, but because the hand of God has reached where yours cannot. Scripture declares that the heart of the king is like water in the hand of the Lord. He directs it wherever He wills. This means that authority is not absolute. It is bendable, shapeable, movable under the command of heaven. What looks immovable to you may already be trembling at the whisper of God's breath. The official who seems indifferent may be restless in the night, stirred by a thought they cannot ignore. The leader who appears hardened may be softened in an instant when God touches their conscience. The system that seems sealed against you may suddenly create a path for your name to pass through simply because heaven decreed it. Consider how God worked in the life of Esther. The law of the land could not be changed. The decree was sealed. The king's authority seemed final, and the fate of her people appeared sealed in doom. But one sleepless night changed everything. A book was opened, a record of loyalty was read, and the king's perspective shifted. What seemed impossible was reversed, and Esther's courage intersected with God's orchestration. The very throne that could have condemned her became the seat of her people's deliverance. Now think of your own life. The people you fear may not even know they are part of your story. They may see themselves as rulers of their domain, untouchable, distant, but God sees them differently. To Him they are vessels, chess pieces on the board of destiny, instruments in His hand to bring about His design. Their decisions may affect hundreds, their words may carry weight, but above them is one whose authority no man can resist. When He speaks, they respond, whether they realize it or not. What if the person you think is your greatest obstacle is already the one God is preparing to release your greatest blessing? What if the very table you fear sitting at is the table where your name will be honored? We often magnify people in our minds, giving them more power than they truly have. But in reality, their power is borrowed. They hold it only because God permits them to hold it, and in His time, He can redirect their influence to favor you. So instead of shrinking in fear before authority, lift your gaze higher. Instead of trembling at the gate of power, remember whose hand holds the gatekeeper. Your role is not to manipulate or beg, but to trust that God is already working behind the veil. Even now, authority may be bending toward you, quietly, invisibly, powerfully, until the day arrives when what was once against you suddenly stands for you. But here is the mystery. While God positions others for your breakthrough, He also positions you. The waiting you endure, the character you build, the humility you learn, all of it is preparation so that when that person in power arrives, you are ready to walk through the door they open. We often imagine breakthrough as a sudden event, a door flung open, an opportunity that bursts into our lives unannounced. Yet breakthrough is rarely sudden. It is the fruit of long preparation. While God moves in the hearts of others, aligning them to play their role, He is also moving in you. For if the door were opened too soon, you might not be ready to walk through it. If the authority appeared before you had matured, you might miss the chance or waste the blessing. Waiting is not passive, it is active preparation. Think of Joseph in the prison. Though forgotten by men, he was not forgotten by God. Day after day, Joseph learned patience, faithfulness, and humility. He honed his gift of interpretation, even when no one rewarded him. He grew in character when no one applauded him. By the time Pharaoh's call came, Joseph was not just ready to interpret a dream, he was ready to govern a nation. Had the door opened earlier, he may have lacked the wisdom to lead. The waiting shaped him into the man who could handle the weight of his breakthrough. The same is true for you. Every delay has been molding you. Every season of silence has been sharpening you. Every closed door has been preparing you for the open one. And while you cannot see it, the person who will one day speak for you or unlock the door to your destiny is also being shaped by God. Just as Joseph was prepared in prison, Pharaoh was prepared in his palace. Both paths were different, but both were necessary for their stories to converge. Think of David, anointed as king yet left to tend sheep. Years passed before the crown rested on his head. Why? Because the boy had to become a man. He had to learn courage in the wilderness, faith in the valleys, and strength in solitude. So when he finally stood before Goliath, he was not shaken, he was seasoned. The giant was not his first battle, it was the culmination of all his unseen preparation. Without the waiting, without the hidden seasons, David would not have been ready. So ask yourself, could the frustration of your waiting be the very thing equipping you for what lies ahead? Could the loneliness, the tears, the prayers, with no immediate answer, be God's way of fortifying you, so that when power meets you, you do not falter? Imagine receiving the opportunity of your dreams without the maturity to sustain it. Imagine stepping into favor without the humility to carry it. The blessing would crush you instead of crown you. Therefore, your waiting is not wasted. Your tears are not ignored. Every moment is shaping you, preparing you to meet the person God has assigned for your breakthrough. When they appear, and they will, you will not stumble through the door they open. You will walk with strength, dignity, and the quiet assurance of someone who knows they were made ready for such a time as this. Ask yourself, could it be that the delay you feel is not denial but alignment? Could it be that the very person who will sign the contract, approve the promotion, or grant the opportunity is even now being shaped by God to recognize you when the time comes? One of the greatest struggles of the human soul is the tension between desire and delay. You pray for a door to open, you labor for progress, and you look for signs of movement, only to find silence. In those moments, despair whispers that perhaps heaven has denied you, but faith dares to suggest another possibility, that what you call delay is not rejection but alignment, that the season of waiting is not punishment but preparation, that the silence of God is not neglect but orchestration. Imagine the process of two rivers, far apart, cutting their way through valleys, winding around mountains, moving in unseen directions. For years they seem separated, destined never to meet, but one day their paths converge, and the two become one powerful stream. This is how God weaves stories together. Your life is one river. The life of the person who holds influence over your destiny is another. Your hungers unfold. The exaltation of your desire is the other. Person who holds influence over your destiny is another. You cannot see the bends and turns in their journey, but God can. And in His timing, the two will meet at a divine intersection, where alignment creates breakthrough. Joseph's story illustrates this truth with piercing clarity. Long before Pharaoh's troubled dreams, Joseph sat in prison, forgotten by those he had helped. Yet the delay was not empty. It was alignment. God was stirring Pharaoh's spirit, troubling his nights, so that when the moment came, Joseph's gift would not merely entertain, but save a nation. Had Joseph been called earlier, Pharaoh might not have been ready to hear him. The delay, though painful, ensured that both Joseph and Pharaoh were aligned for destiny. You too may be in such a season. The person who must sign their name on your opportunity may still be walking through their own process. The leader who will one day lift you may first need to be humbled, taught, or awakened by God. The system that seems closed may need to be reshaped until the door fits your frame. What looks like delay to you is often alignment in God's design. He is arranging pieces you cannot see, moving hearts you cannot touch, creating circumstances you cannot predict. Think of the person who seems far above you, beyond your reach, someone whose decision could change your life. Perhaps right now they are not even aware of your existence. But what if God is already whispering into their nights, troubling their peace until they are prepared to meet you? What if He is already sowing in their heart a sense of urgency, so that when your name finally crosses their desk, their spirit leaps in recognition of something divine? This is why despair is such a thief. It convinces you that silence means abandonment, when in truth silence often means alignment. The longer you wait, the more deeply God prepares the soil, so that when the seed of your breakthrough falls, it does not wither but flourishes. Patience then is not weakness but wisdom. It is the understanding that God's timing is not late but perfect. The person who will open the door for you is being shaped even now. Their heart is being readied, their path redirected, their will bent until it aligns with God's plan. And when the appointed hour comes, there will be no hesitation, no struggle. The pen will move, the words will be spoken, the decree will be signed. And you will know that the delay you once cursed was the very alignment that ensured your blessing would last. If so, then your task is not to strive endlessly in despair, but to remain steadfast, trusting that the hand of heaven is moving on earth through someone, with the authority to shift your life. There is a temptation in every season of waiting to strive, to push harder, to knock on every door, to force outcomes that refuse to budge. You wear yourself thin, chasing opportunities that collapse in your hands, exhausting yourself with effort that yields no fruit. And when nothing seems to move, despair creeps in, whispering that perhaps your life is destined to remain locked in place. But what if the truth is this? Your breakthrough does not depend on your striving, but on your steadfastness. Faith is not frantic, it is anchored. It does not run in panic from one door to another. It waits at the right door until it opens. Trust does not wither when the heavens are silent. It deepens, knowing that silence does not mean absence. Your role in this season is not to wear yourself out with endless striving, but to remain steadfast, trusting that God is already moving in places you cannot see. Think of Ruth gleaning in the fields. Day after day, she bent her back under the hot sun, gathering scraps others overlooked. To the outside eye, she was striving in futility, but in reality, her steadfastness placed her in the exact field where destiny would find her. Boaz, the man of influence and favor, was not stumbled upon by chance. God orchestrated Ruth's path, and her consistency carried her to the place where breakthrough would come. Her task was not to manipulate events, but to remain faithful, and in her faithfulness, God moved. This is the principle. While you remain steadfast, God moves in power. While you guard your heart against despair, He works in places beyond your sight. While you hold fast to His promises, He stirs the hearts of those in authority. You cannot reach into their minds, you cannot change their decrees, but God can. The heart of the ruler, the decision of the leader, the signature of the official, all of it is within His command. Your part is not to collapse in fear, but to trust the unseen hand that directs it all. Steadfastness is not weakness, it is strength. It is the refusal to bow to despair. It is the quiet courage that says, though I see nothing, I will not move from my place of faith. And in that stance, you create room for God to do what only He can do. For the one who strives endlessly may collapse in exhaustion, but the one who trusts endlessly will see doors open without lifting a finger. Consider how often your striving has left you weary. How often have you chased opportunities that dissolved into dust? How many times have you stretched yourself thin, only to find emptiness? Perhaps the lesson is this: the authority to shift your life is not in your hands, it is in His. He does not call you to exhaustion, but to endurance. He does not demand striving, but steadfastness. So stand firm, hold your ground. Do not let despair rob you of the faith that sustains you. For while you wait, heaven is working. While you trust, authority is shifting. And while you remain steadfast, the appointed one in power is already moving closer, carrying with them the breakthrough you could never have forced into being by your own hand. Your breakthrough may not come through the crowd who doubted you, nor through the friends who abandoned you. It may come through someone you never expected, someone in power who holds the key. And when it happens, it will be undeniable that it was not the hand of man, but the hand of God working through man. There is something both humbling and astonishing about the way God works. We often look to the familiar faces, the people we have invested in, the friends who promised loyalty, the family who swore to stand beside us, and we assume they will be the ones to lift us when the time of need arrives. Yet, more often than not, these are the very voices that fall silent, the very hands that withdraw, the very shoulders that turn away, and it is in those moments of abandonment that God begins to reveal His greater plan. That your breakthrough will not come through the ones who doubted you, but through someone you never expected. Joseph was not elevated by his brothers who hated him, nor by Potiphar who trusted him for a time, nor by the cupbearer who forgot him. His elevation came through Pharaoh, a foreign ruler with no covenant relationship with Joseph's God. David's path to the throne was not cleared by Saul, the king who knew him well, but by the Philistine giant who made his faith undeniable, and by the people who saw his courage. Time and again, destiny does not arrive through familiar faces, but through unexpected ones, placed in power to fulfill a divine assignment. This is why you cannot cling too tightly to human expectation. You may think your opportunity will come through a certain person in a certain way at a certain time. And when they fail you, despair tries to whisper that your future has died with their rejection. But God does not bind your destiny to the loyalty of men. He binds it to His own plan, and He will raise up someone else, often a stranger, often an unlikely vessel, often a person you could not have imagined, to carry the authority to unlock your breakthrough. Think about it. The person who will sign your release, approve your promotion, open the gate of favor for you, may not even know your name today. Yet God already knows theirs, and He is preparing the intersection where your paths will cross. When it happens, it will not be because of manipulation or luck or chance. It will be because heaven's hand guided an earthly ruler to fulfill an eternal plan. And when that moment comes, it will silence every doubt. Those who mocked you will not be able to deny the evidence of God's hand. Those who abandoned you will stand in awe at the way favor clothed you. Those who counted you out will realize they never had the final word. For your breakthrough will not look like man's doing. It will shine with the unmistakable fingerprints of God. This is the beauty of divine orchestration. The stage is set so that when the curtain rises, all the glory belongs not to the vessel, but to the one who sent them. The person in power may hold the key, but it is God who wrote the script, timed the moment, and directed the scene. Your task is not to chase after men, but to trust in the hand of God that moves through men. For when your breakthrough comes, it will come in such a way that no one will doubt. It was never man, it was always God. So take courage. The silence of this season is not the absence of God. It is the evidence that He is arranging something beyond your sight. The very people you thought you needed may never be the ones to open the door. But that should not stir fear in you. It should stir faith. Because if they walked away, if they abandoned you, if they turned their back, it only means that God has assigned another. Someone in power, someone in position, someone with authority, already chosen to be the vessel of your breakthrough. Lift your eyes then from the faces of those who failed you. Stop rehearsing the names of those who betrayed you. Stop looking back at the closed doors that seemed so final. Instead, fix your gaze on the one who holds every heart in his hand, who bends the will of kings like rivers, who whispers into the minds of rulers and stirs the consciences of leaders until they act in line with his will. Your breakthrough is not lost, it is not forgotten, it is not denied. It is being carried even now by someone you may not yet know, someone you may never have expected, someone God has appointed for such a time as this. And when they arrive, when the door swings open, when the decree is signed, when the blessing is released, you will know beyond any doubt it was never the hand of man, but the hand of God moving through man. Hold on, stay faithful, remain steadfast, for the one who assigned the authority has already written your breakthrough into the story of time, and nothing, no betrayal, no delay, no rejection can erase what heaven has decreed.